Hi, fellow viewers. This is our Cartoon Academy, and today we'll talk about the cartoon series Victor and Valentino. And I apologize in advance for my accent and for my English. This is the third part of the review. This part is dedicated to the third season, but without the final story arcs. If you haven't seen previous parts of the review, check them out. The introduction to the third season is the 22-minute episode Sal is Our Pal and the 11-minute episode The Fog. In other words, we can consider that the season begins with 3 episodes of a continuous plot. Since the beginning of the third season, the intro has changed for the only time in the series. Xochi, Pineapple and Maria Teresa disappear here, for which Isabella, Sal and Tess appear. And at the end of the intro, you can see all the characters from both intros. In the first part of the review, I noted that the old set of secondary characters did not seem obvious to me. For example, Maria Teresa is clearly less important for the plot of the second season than Christina. But I agree with the new set, although at the end extra characters appear. And so Tess decides to become so-called Tlatoani in the Monte Macabre city where the events of the animated series take place. As explained in the episode, a Tlatoani is
something like a mayor.
but the position is hereditary. Tess, as a relative of the previous Tlatoani, may be a new one. After the boys indicate that they will confront Tess, he closes Chata's food stand. Victor and Valentino want to prevent Tess from becoming a Tlatoani. They speculate that Sal is also related to the former Tlatoani. Apparently, according to local laws, even though Tlatoani is a hereditary position, if there are several heirs, then which of them will become a Tlatoani is determined by elections. The one-day election race begins. Both Sal and Tess are running their election campaigns. Since Sal usually behaves strangely and sometimes stupidly, I was surprised that he began to speak with quite meaningful slogans.
Deregulation!
As I noted in the previous parts of the review, in structural breakdown, I do not focus much attention on details, and I almost do not criticize cartoon logic and physics. But this scene with a running crowd especially surprised me. Tess sees that he is losing. Then he decides to resort to the help of Tsetsimimes. The Tsetsimimes, who can control people, go to vote for Tess. Actually, it seems to me that later in the morning, people would simply not in mass remember how they voted for Tess, and Tess would have no legitimacy in their eyes. I also didn't really understand how Tess managed to bring so many people under the control of the Tsetsimimes. If he did it the same way as with Don, then it would be too long. And so a crowd of people under the control of the Tsetsimimes go to vote. Victor, Valentino and Sal work together to stop them. It is enough for them to hold out until the morning, when the Tsetsimimes will have to leave. They succeed, but people are unhappy with it.
We did it! We stopped the vote!
You blocked us from voting?
Actually, it seemed strange to me how scene was staged. It seems not very clear what's happening. So the majority votes for Tess, and he becomes Tlatoani. The plot of the episode 3, The Fog, is that Victor and Valentino decide to leave Monte Macabre. They motivate this by the fact that the city has become too dangerous after Tess came to power. It was also influenced by how, in front of Victor and Valentino, the whole city was under the control of the Tsetsimimes. Victor and Valentino also offer Chata to leave, but she not only refuses herself, but also opposes Victor and Valentino leaving. Her words will be remembered by the main characters at the end of the episode, when they change their minds about leaving. And so Victor and Valentino trying to get out of the city. But along the way they enter some kind of a purple fog, which teleports them back to the city. This fog was created by Tess, which the main characters also guess. They go to Tez's house and steal the stuff that Tez usually uses in the hope that with the stuff they can somehow disperse the fog. Tez catches them stealing and chases after them. The chase continues to the place where the fog begins. Tez does not know that the main characters wanted to leave the city and thinks that they wanted to deprive him of his magical stuff. He says that it is not the stuff that gives him magic. He is going to kill Victor and Valentino. The main characters ask why Tess can't just let them out of town. Yawning that Victor and Valentino just wanted to leave the town, Tess lets them go. Apparently, the fog created by Tess does not allow Eva to leave the city or enter it. By the way, wasn't this fog supposed to create much more problems? What about trade? Was the city under blockade? Later in the season, it doesn't seem that way. Tess creates a temporary gap in the fog and leaves. However, this encounter with Tess and Chata's words from the beginning of the episode convince the main characters to not leave the city. From an artistic point of view, the lack of opportunity for the main characters to leave the city makes the episode's finale a point of no return. In the episode 6, the bodyguard, Tez creates so-called Jaguar Patrol. It's like a police force. In the future in the season, they will follow the orders of Tez and help him. They also, during the episode, give out obsidian mirrors to everyone in town as a gift from Tez. Don Jalapeno not only understands the supernatural but also collects dossiers on many people in the city. He becomes an important ally for Victor and Valentino in the confrontation with Tez. However, Don wavers between cooperating with the boys and cooperating with Tez. This is expected because the boys often committed infantile acts and angered Don in different ways, but Tez promises to restore order in the city. Don decides to join the Jaguar Patrol. The boys realize that joining the patrol will bring Don too close to Tez, and he is then less likely to be on their side, and they try to sabotage Don's joining the patrol, but they fail. Then the boys steal Don's dossier on Tess and show it to Tess. They hope that Tess, unhappy that Don is spying on him, will push him away from him. But no, on the contrary, Tess makes Don his bodyguard. Tess motivates this by saying that collecting so much information about him is an act of initiative that should be encouraged. However, I assume that when Victor and Valentino brought the dossier to Tez, he realized that it was important for the boys to push Don away from him and then did the opposite. Now the boys are trying to sabotage Don's work as a bodyguard, but the Jaguar Patrol catches them and stops them. However, Don himself fails at work, thus angering Tez.
I'm fired, aren't I?
And before we go to the final scene, a slight digression from the topic. Creators sometimes try to use visual storytelling. They do it with varying degrees of success. And sometimes I do not quite understand what's going on. But the scene from the finale of The Bodyguard is an example of good visual storytelling. So the boys are happy that Don is on their side again. Suddenly Tez calls Don and offers to work for him in another position.
Act as my eyes and ears.
For Don to agree, it is enough to nod.
If you understand, nod your head. Good.
At this point, the audience realizes that the obsidian mirrors allow spying. Moreover, I think Don also understood this. He looks at the mirror during the call and after it. If I'm right, then Don only pretended to take the side of Tez. Later in the season, season, Dawn will not help Tess in any way. Many things in this cartoon make more sense if you take not only the direct narrative, but sometimes look deeper, mostly by analyzing the visual storytelling. For example, that scene from Sal is our pal in this case becomes less weird. And what I talk about in the fourth part of the review is placed in its own whole separate part, including because there I for a long time analyze what is happening. At the same time, there is always a possibility that actually my theories are nonsense and the creators just messed up. In the episode Butterman, Victor, Valentino, and Sal will once again confront Tess, this time based on the threat to the environment, which was carried by the actions of Tess. By the end of the episode, Tess will banish Sal from the city, so he will not get in his way anymore. Finally, Sal will give the boys an instruction that will become the moral of the episode, and perhaps give the boys strength in the future.
You have to find the Butterman inside you, as long as you believe.
Now, without Sal, the boys will be left alone to confront Tess. During the season, we will see several episodes in which the main characters confront Tess or Sid the Mimes. These episodes do not affect the plot, that is, they're filler. But due to the presence of a fight with Tess in them, they become interesting. For example, it is the episode 19, Poking and Prodding. However, at the end of this episode, we will see some mysterious creature talking to Tess, which can also be considered important for the plot. This part of the review covers the plot only up to the episode 23, Another Dawn. Therefore, I will simply note that such filler episodes about the fight with Tess and Sid the Mimes will continue after it, but I will not spend time on them in the next parts of the review. The main claim to the logic that I want to present to this storyline is that Tess could always win. Nothing prevented Tess from, for example, teleporting the main characters to his lair and then concluding them in mirrors. Or kill them. At the end of The Fog, he didn't kill them just because they said they wanted to leave the town. The romantic line between Valentino and Isabella has more time in the third season. In the episode 9, Plandemonium, Valentino will try to plan the day they with Isabella will spend. Everyone in the house will constantly spoil Valentino's plans. This won't upset Isabella, who was happy to spend time with Valentino in any way. But Valentino was upset a lot. However, in the end, Valentino agrees to spend time without a strict plan. Valentino and Isabella dance under the stars. In the episode 17, The Matchmaker, Valentino becomes a matchmaker for our children. Isabella asks Valentino to help her find a boyfriend too. Isabella clearly hints that she wants to date Valentino, but he does not understand the hints, although later becomes jealous of Isabella, whom he likes. Valentino chooses Ramon for Isabella. When Isabella is on a date with Ramon, Valentino realizes his mistake and goes to stop the date. A rude act. His behavior angers Isabella. And yet, at the end, Valentino and Isabella confess their feelings to each other and start dating. But again, like for example in the season 2 finale, I don't understand why at no point does Valentino apologize. In the episode 21, Jump Scare, set up for the plot will be that Valentino and Isabella will spend time together. And Victor will feel like the third wheel. I mentioned in the second part of the review that the release order of the episodes is messed up. So, the filler episode about this couple, Mission Mariachi, came out after Star Child, and it should have been before Another Dawn. I did not analyze the above episodes in detail, because these episodes are still more filler than plot. The relationship between Victor and Charlene also gets its continuation. No, they will not start dating. It's just that Charlene will continue to flirt unhealthily with Victor. However, the episode 30, We Clean, will be especially important. This is an episode about a body swap. At the end of it, there will be a conversation between Victor and Charlene about Charlene's feelings.
I thought if you saw things through my eyes, then maybe you'd like me.
And they will reach a partial reconciliation.
I guess I don't hate you?
That's all I needed to hear.
I was pleased by the intensity of this scene, but Victor and Charlene lack a deeper reflection on this topic. Charlene is unrequitedly in love with Victor. Charlene often does bad things when she tries to become closer with Victor. The animated series almost does not condemn Charlene's actions directly, but let's say that the very fact that Charlene could not make Victor fall in love with her is a hint that Charlene is doing wrong. And yet with two need to discuss their relationship, they never do. And Charlene does not show even a hint of understanding that she is acting wrong. From the beginning of watching the series, I expected personal growth for Charlene, but there is none. Season 3 had a lot of fillers that reveal the characters and their relationships. That is, there are a lot of good fillers in the season. For example, the episode 7, Miguelito the Mosquito, will show us Miguelito's life from his point of view, gradually starting to sum up the entire series. It's good that some filler episodes reveal even side characters, making them less lifeless. Perhaps the episode 5, Showdown at the Mayahuel Gardens, reveals Maria Teresa and her relationship with Chata. In the episode 37, Xochi's Garden, it turns out that Xochi can control plants. As you remember, Xochi is Sapphic, and in this episode the ability to control plants will be an allusion to her orientation.
I understood my unusualness more, even if people around me didn't.
Also in the season, Victor and Valentino will sometimes go to the Vault of Dead, where Mick and Han allowed them to come. The episode 12 will be about the Day of the Dead, when ghosts go to visit their relatives. Then Christina will meet with Victor, but I don't understand. Why can't Victor himself come to visit Christina? Well, I remember, at the end of the second season, I already complained that the presence of the Vault of Dead devalues death. In the third season, all the problems of this series remain, including big number of fillers and problems with logic. But it's good that in the third season there is finally a coherent plot. If you haven't watched the previous parts of the review yet, you can watch them now. And then watch the next part of the review when it comes out. There we will discuss how and what turned out the romantic line between Valentino and Isabella. Write your comments below the video, especially if you have your own thoughts on the topic of the third season and of my video. I'm a beginning YouTuber, I need your feedback.
Not bad.
If you liked the video, then I suggest you consider the option of like, aforementioned comment and subscription. Goodbye everyone!